People insisted that the well should remain common property, and so the dividing wall came up to it, and stopped there, the well acting as a blockade between the two brothers, but accessible from either side. Now Margaya looked about for the small brass pot. He could not see it anywhere.
"Hey, little man," he called out, "where is the well pot?" He liked to call his son out constantly.
When he came home, he could not bear to be kept away from him even for a moment. He felt uneasy and irritated when the child did not answer his call. He saw the youngster stooping over the lamp, trying to thrust a piece of paper into the chimney.
He watched him from the doorway. He suppressed the inclination to call him away and warn him. The child thrust a piece of paper into the lamp, and when it burned brightly he recoiled at the sudden spurt of fire.
But when it blackened and burnt out, he drew near the lamp again, gingerly putting his finger near the metal plate on the top. Before Margaya could stop him, he had touched it. He let out a shriek.
Margaya was beside him in a moment. His shriek brought in Margaya's wife, who had gone to a neighboring shop. She came rushing into the house with cries of, "What is it?
What is it? What has happened?" Margaya felt embarrassed, like a man caught shirking a duty.
He told his wife curtly, "Why do you shout so much, as if a great calamity had befallen this household, so that your sister-in-law in the neighborhood may think how active we are, I suppose? Sister-in-law, how proud you are of your relatives." Her further remarks could not be continued because of the howling set up by the child, whose burnt finger still remained unattended.
At this the mother snatched him up from her husband's arms, and hugged him close to her, hurting him more, whereupon he shouted in a new key. Margaya tried to tear him out of his wife's arms, crying, "Quick, get that ointment." "Where is it?"
"You can keep nothing in its place. You need not shout," the wife answered, running about and rummaging in the cupboard.
She grumbled, "You can't look after him even for a second without letting him hurt himself. You need not get hysterical about it, gentle lady. I had gone for a moment to the well. Everyone gets tap water in this town."
"We alone," she began, attacking on a new front. All right, he said, curbing her, and turning his attention to the finger. "You must never go near fire again, do you understand?"
"Will you buy me a little elephant tomorrow?" the child asked, his cheeks still wet with tears. By now they had discovered a little wooden crucible containing some black ointment in the cupboard, hidden behind a small basket containing loose cotton, which Margaya's wife twisted into wicks for the lamp in God's niche.
She applied the ointment to the injured finger, and set the child roaring in a higher key. This time he said, "I want a big peppermint." At night when the lights were put out and the sounds of Vinayak Street had quietened, Margaya said to his wife, lying on the other side of their sleeping child, "Do you know, poor boy?
I could have prevented Balu from hurting himself. I just stood there and watched. I wanted to see what he would do alone by himself." His wife made a noise of deprecation. "It is as I suspected.
You were at the bottom of the whole trouble. I don't know. That boy is terribly mischievous, and you are. She could not find the right word for it.
Her instinct was full of foreboding, and she left the sentence unfinished. After a long pause she added, "It's impossible to manage him during the afternoons. He constantly runs out of the house into the street.
I don't have a moment's peace or rest." "Don't get cantankerous about such a small child," said Margaya, who disliked all these adverse remarks about his son. It seemed to him such a pity that that small bundle of man curled beside him like a tiny pillow should be so talked about.
His wife retorted, "Yes, I wish you could stay at home and look after him instead of coming in the evening and dandling him for a moment after he has exhausted all his tricks." "Yes, gladly, provided you agree to go out and arrange loans for all those village idiots." The child levied an exacting penalty on his parents the next day for the little patch of burn on his finger.
He held his finger upright and would not let anyone come near him. He refused to be put into a new shirt, refused food, refused to walk, and insisted on being carried about by his mother or father. Margaya examined the hurt finger and said, "It looks all right, there seems to be nothing wrong there."
"Don't say so," screamed the boy in his own childish slang. "I'm hurt. I want a peppermint."
Margaya was engaged all the morning in nursing his finger and plying him with peppermints. His wife remarked, "He'll be ill with peppermints before you are done with him." Why don't you look after him, then?
He asked. I won't go to mother, screamed the boy. I will be with you.
Margaya had some odd jobs to do while at home in the mornings. He went to the nearby urban stores and bought sugar or butter, he cut up the firewood into smaller sizes if his wife complained about it, or he opened his tin box and refreshed his memory by poring over the pages of his red-bound account book. But today the boy would not let him do anything except fuss over him.
The child kept Margaya at home for over an hour beyond his usual time. He could leave for the cooperative bank only at midday, stealing out when, oblivious of his surroundings, the little fellow's attention was engaged in splashing about a bucket of water in the backyard. When the water was exhausted, he looked all round and let out such an angry shout for his father that the people on the other side of the wall remarked to each other, "This is the worst of begetting sons late in life."
They pet them and spoil them and make them little monsters. The lady on the other side of the wall could well say this because she was the mother often. Asterisk.
Margaya looked up as a shadow fell on his notebook. He saw a uniformed servant standing before him.
It was Amidas, the head peon of the cooperative bank, an old Christian who had grown up with the institution. He had wrinkles round his eyes, and a white moustache and mild eyes. Margaya looked up at him and wondered what to do, whether to treat him as a hostile visitor or as a friend.
Instinctively he recoiled from anyone coming out of that building, where he knew he was being viewed as a public enemy. He hesitated for a moment, then looked up silently at the figure before him. "Sit down, won't you, Arul Das?" Arul Das shot a glance over his shoulder at the office.
He will not like it if he sees me dallying here. I mean the secretary, asks you to come, said Arul. Me, Margaya could hardly believe his ears.
The secretary. What have I to do with your secretary? I don't know at all, but he said, go and tell Margaya to come here for a moment.
On hearing this, Margaya became indignant. Go and tell them I am not their paid. He was about to say, servant, but he remembered in time, even in his mental stress, that the man standing before him was literally both paid and a servant, and thought it would be injudicious to say so now. So he left off the sentence abruptly and asked, do they pay me to appear before them when they want me?
I don't know, said this very loyal cooperative man. He told me to tell you. The secretary is no ordinary person, you know, he added.
He receives a salary of over 500 rupees a month, an amount which you and I will probably not see even after 100 years of service. Now Margaya's blood was stirred. Many angry memories welled up in him of all the indignities that he had suffered at the hands of his brother, who cut him off with half a house, while he himself passed for a man of means, a respectable citizen.
Margaya felt that the world treated him with contempt because he had no money. People thought they could order him about. He said to Arul Das, I don't know about you. You can speak for yourself.
But you need not speak for me. You may not see 100 rupees even after 100 years of service, but I think I shall do so very soon, and who knows, if your secretary seeks any improvement of his position, he can come to me. Arul Das took a few moments to understand, then swayed with laughter.
Tears rolled down his cheeks. Well, I have been a servant in this department for 29 years, but I've never heard a crazier proposal. All right.
He was convulsed with laughter as he turned to go. Margaya looked at his back helplessly. He cast his eyes down and surveyed himself. Perhaps he cut a ridiculous figure, with his dhoti going brown for lack of laundering and with his shirt collar frayed, and those awful silver spectacles.
I hate these spectacles. I wish I could do without them. But age, who could help long sight?
If I wore gold spectacles, perhaps they would take me seriously and not order me about. Who is the secretary to call me through the peon? I won't be ridiculed.
I'm at least as good as they. He called out, look here, Arul Das. With a beaming face, Arul Das turned round.
Tell your secretary that if he is a secretary, I'm really the proprietor of a bank, and that he can come here and meet me if he has any business. Shall I repeat those very words? Arul Das asked, ready to burst out laughing again.
Absolutely, Margaya said. And another thing, if you find yourself thrown out of there, you can come to me for a job. I like you, you seem to be a hard-working, loyal fellow.
Further parleys were cut off because a couple of villagers came round for consultation, and started forming a semicircle in front of Margaya. Though Arul Das still lingered for a further joke, Margaya turned away abruptly, remarking, "All right, you may go now." "Please," said a peasant, "be careful, sir."
That Arul Das is a bad fellow. I'm also a bad fellow, snapped Margaya. It's not that.
They say that the secretary just does what this fellow says. If we go in to get just one single form, he charges us 2 annas each time. Is that also a government rule? Asked the peasant.
Go away, you fools, Margaya said. You are people who have no self-respect. As long as you are shareholders, you are masters of that bank.
They are your paid servants. Ah, is that so? Asked the peasant. And the group looked up at each other with amazement.
Another man, who had a long blanket wrapped round his shoulder, a big cloth turban crowning his head, and wore shorts and was barefoot, said, "We may be masters as you say, but who is going to obey us? If we go in, we have to do as they say. Otherwise, they won't give us money."
Whose money are they giving away? Asked Margaya. It is your own. Margaya, we don't want all that.
Why should we talk of other people? True, true, said one or two others approvingly. Encouraged by this, the peasant said, "We should not talk about others unnecessarily."
He lowered his voice and said, "If they hear it, they may." Margaya, as blood rushed to his head, "You get away from here," he thundered. "I don't want to have anything to do with people without self-respect, who don't know their importance and strength."
What better words can we expect from someone like you who wraps himself in that coarse blanket at this time of the day? What better stuff can we expect from a head weighed down by so many folds of a dirty turban? The peasant was somewhat cowed by Margaya's manner.
He mumbled, "I didn't mean to offend you, sir. If I did, would I be here?" "That's all right.
No further unnecessary talk. If you have any business, tell me. Otherwise, get out of here.
Before dusk I have to attend to so many people. You are not the only one who has business with me." "I want a small loan, sir," began the peasant.
I want to know how much more I have to pay to clear the balance loan. Why don't you go in there and ask your Arul Das? Oh, they are all very bad, unhelpful people, sir. That's why I never like to go there, but come to you first.
"Why do we come to you, sir, of all persons in this big city?" "It's because you know our joys and sorrows and our troubles, our difficulties and—" All right, Margaya said, cutting him short, yet greatly mollified by his manner.
I know what you are trying to say. Don't I? He looked round at his clients.
And they shook their heads approvingly, making appropriate sounds with their tongues, in order to please him. After all these bouts, he settled down to business. He had a busy day, filling up forms, writing applications, writing even petitions unconnected with money business for 1 or 2 clients, talking, arguing, and calculating.
He was nearly hoarse by the time the sun's rays touched him on the nape of his neck, and the shadows of the banyan tree fell on the drive leading to the cooperative bank. He started to close his office. He put back his writing pad, neatly folded up some pieces of paper on which he had noted figures, scrutinized again the little register, counted some cash, and checked some receipts.
He arranged all these back in the small tin box, laid a few sheets of loan application forms flat on top of them so as to prevent their creasing, restored to its corner the ink bottle, and laid beside it the red wooden pen. Everything in its place. He hated, more than anything else, having to fumble for his papers or stationery, and a disordered box was as hateful to him as the thought of Arul Das.
His mind was oppressed with thoughts of Arul Das. He felt insulted, and so, what right had he or anyone to insult or browbeat him?
What had he done that they themselves did not do? He would teach this Arul Das a lesson, no matter at what cost. At this moment he heard a step approaching, and looking up saw a man, wearing a brown suit, standing before him. His
hands were in his pockets, and behind him at a respectable distance stood Arul Das. The man looked very smart, with a hat on his head, a very tidy young man who looked as if he had just come from Europe, Margaya reflected. Looking at him, he felt himself to be such a contrast with his brown dhoti, torn shirt, and the absurd little tuft under the black cap.
No wonder they treat me as they do, he said to himself. Perhaps I should have exercised greater care in my speech. God knows what that Arul Das has reported. I should not have spoken.
This fellow looks as if he could do anything. Markaya looked at Arul Das and shuddered, noting the wicked gleam in his eye.